Run fast. So, I'm new here and just trying to get some honest opinions on what I should do with my relationship. My wife and I have talking about divorce and legal separation, but I'm not sure that's really what I want. This is a long story, and I hope some of you will please endure it so I can get the best possible opinions. So, the story begins back in January 2019. I met my future at the time wife. She already had one failed marriage and a son from that marriage. We both were in the military and shared a few common friends. We fell madly in love. I could go on all day about how much we loved each other and couldn't be away from each other for a second. We got happily married 7 months later, July of 2019. My wife and I were still madly in love and things couldn't have been better. We got pregnant and had a baby boy on the way. Around September of 19, I started to get very depressed. I had a very bad experience while deployed in 2017 when my truck hit an IED and killed 2 of my guys, including my best friend, and removing a leg from my squad leader. I have had many problems over the years dealing with these issues, but it didn't bother me until late 2019. I got out of the Army December 2019 and have been the stay-at-home dad of our kids. Let's just say, things started going very bad in my marriage. My wife did everything she could to keep me happy, and nothing worked. I lost my drive and blamed her gaining baby weight as the problem for that. My wife, despite all of this, stuck it out with me and continued to try and make me happy. 2020 was the worst year. I had given up in my marriage and stopped trying. I quit giving her much attention and spent most of my time on the computer. Plain put, I was the worst husband ever. Our first only son together was born May 16, 2020, and things were good for about 6 weeks after that, but then went back to the old ways. Things started to get better in 2021, but we still had issues because of the year before. We talked divorce once during that time and I almost had to buy a plane ticket back to my home state. We worked things out, though I still wasn't much better than before. I was still depressed and not really trying working things out. This is where the story gets bad. My wife deployed on June 20, 2021. The first 2 weeks she was gone, she was Skype calling me every day all day long. At the time I had just my son with me. My oldest was with his biological dads for the summertime. I told her that she was calling too much because I had a life here I needed to manage. This kind of ticked her off, but I felt it was necessary. Things were really good once she only called a few hours every other day. I was happy and so was she. At the end of the summer, I received our oldest son back from his dad's house. After that, I was really highly stressed all the time. I found it difficult to raise 2 kids by myself. Oldest was 4 years, and the other at the time 16 months old. I got super annoyed when she would call because I was so stressed all the time and tired. I told her that she annoyed me every time she called. We stopped talking almost altogether for the rest of the deployment. We still talked, but it was just to say hi and for her to chat with the boys. In September of that year, after I told her she annoyed me, she stopped wearing her wedding rings and changed all of her email and Facebook passwords because she was angry at me. I didn't find out until January because she posted on Facebook that she lost her wedding ring and hoped someone had found it. On January 7, 2022, she asked me over Facebook if I wanted a divorce. I told her yes I did. I wasn't sure that I really did, but after being so far apart and not talking much I didn't feel loved myself, let alone how she felt. When she got home, the moment I seen her get off the plane, I knew I made the biggest mistake of my life. All those feelings of love came back, and she still had feelings for me as well. So, what's the issue here, you ask? She was very suspicious when she came home. She was angry at me for wanting to work things out now that she was home, but I didn't support her when she needed it the most. She kept a lock on her phone and computer, which never happened pre-deployment. This bothered me and she told me that it was none of my business what she was texting other people. The first weekend after she came home, she was going to the bar to get drunk with her unit. I was the babysitter for this night and wasn't allowed to go. Suspicious. I managed to catch her phone before it locked, and I installed an application on her phone to see if she was cheating on me. That first night was the first rude awakening that she was indeed cheating on me. She was telling this guy how she wishes she could disappear with him and how she would do him so hard and stuff like this. I was devastated. But being the honest man I was, I told her about it the next day. She told me that it was just dirty talk and there was nothing else to it. She also told me that she never had slept with anyone while being home or while deployed. A few weeks later, she comes to me and tells me that she missed her period, which was to start just days after coming home. At this point, we had slept together 3 times unprotected, but I never had made a mistake like this before. I was 99% sure that the baby wasn't mine, but she swore that she never cheated on me. A week later, while at her mom's house, we got into a little fight about something, and she admitted so sleeping with some black guy right before coming home. I was furious and called her a liar among a few other names and stormed out the house. We talked about it a couple hours later and she told me she felt bad for lying, and that she said I deserved to know because we were going to work things out again. She went and seen a doctor, this is about 2 weeks ago, to see how old the baby was. Come to find out, she conceived around the first week of February, 3 weeks before coming home. At this point, I decided to hack into her computer, which was mine anyways, and look at her Facebook messages from deployment. She never logs out, because the PC has a password I don't know. To make a long story short, she had slept with 2 different guys, and lied about who the real father was. The real father, who was married as well, wants to be in the baby's life and for the baby to have his last name. He is a staff sergeant in the army, so if I pushed the issue, I could get my wife and him kicked out of the army for adultery and fraternization, physical relations between a non-commissioned officer, staff sergeant, and a junior enlisted member. I've thought about doing that to get back at my wife, but at the same time she is my son's mother. My wife is willing to work things out, but I'm not sure I can live with 3 kids, 2 of which are not mine, and having 2 other dads in our family. Plus, I'm scared she might even do it again. So, I guess the true question here is, can a soulmate mess up like this and love be strong enough for us to make it past this? Also, whenever I ask her what she wants, she always says she doesn't know. She has told me she loves the other guy more than I, but not in the same exact way as me, but they are also both married. I guess she keeps me around because she can't have him. I love my wife to death, and after some hard long thinking, I've come to realize that she was perfect for me. I really messed up by not trying in our marriage and will regret it for the rest of my life. She cheated on me because I really let her down these last few years and wasn't there for her. I'm not saying she didn't wrong me. Trust me, I think she made a bad mistake, but I can also see where she is coming from being a woman. Her husband not there for her, especially during deployment. You guys think that there is still a chance for us? I really am willing to make her happy like I used to. I would do anything for her because I love her so much. I'm just not sure I can live through this situation and the fact that she is having someone else's baby. She didn't sleep together since being home, but she was texting this guy wishing she could disappear with him and how she wanted to sleep with him that night. I can only really go by her text messages and Facebook messages, and they show no hint of it. A couple of reasons. 1, she was my first serious relationship, and the first girl I ever truly fell in love with. 2, I'm scared to leave the only person who has made me truly happy. 3, I don't want my son to grow up in a broken home. Is it really fair to trash her career though? It would ruin any kind of civil relationship we could ever have. She is currently 8 or 9 weeks pregnant, so nope, hasn't delivered. I definitely don't want this guy in my life. I would want to knock his lights out every waking second. The reason she didn't use a condom was, what she said, we got caught up in the moment. She is going to get checked for STDs first, and if she has one, I will get checked. I've been seen here and there for the PTSD, but not enough most likely. I like to just try and deal with it myself. And I like your point about her trashing my life. It defiantly will never be the same, and I will probably have a hard time trusting in my future relationships. The more she's deployed, the better for me. My wife doesn't believe in abortion, and she told me how would the baby feel if it found out one day that we had kids before and after him, her, but we didn't keep it. Plus, I know that real dad would be super pissed. My wife swears up and down that she didn't tell me the truth because I threatened to go to her chain of command. She is scared, and all I know is he is worried I might. Why I haven't left her yet, because I did wrong her as well. I'm just trying to see if there is too much damage done in this relationship. I knew before we got pregnant the first time together that abortion was not an option. She has always been against it, and I think she would rather I leave her than that. As for the dude, I agree, but she concerned he will fight us if we try to leave him out of the baby's life. This guy is obsessed and really wants kids. His wife hates kids. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm really leaning towards legal separation. Can't divorce in Kentucky while the spouse is pregnant. And she does have different views than most people about marriage, cheating, and babies as well. The lawyer said we would have to go to court just to get that waiver, and that really isn't worth it when a legal separation is pretty much the same thing. She admitted to having an emotional affair with both guys as well. The first guy was a rebound. The second guy, the baby's daddy, well, she still loves him more than she loves me, she admits that. I had a chance to talk to her last night about the baby and its father last night. She said that he would rather get kicked out of the military than give the baby up. So, I can't use fraternization as leverage to keep him away, unfortunately. My wife says she's thought about giving the baby up to him, but she's not sure she can live with that decision. What do I do, and what should I be asking on this particular subject? She wasn't going to tell me who the real father was because he was a senior NOC and could get in a lot of trouble if I reported them. She had me believing it was guy number 1's baby, not guy number 2. I also have a hard time believing they are going to just co-parent together. And yes, she talks to him almost every day, and she deletes their conversations on Facebook. She has been telling me for weeks that she isn't going to put much effort into the marriage until she sees me putting effort into it. She justifies that by saying she had put effort in for years while I did nothing, and now it's my turn to put the effort in first. It's a waste of time to stick around. I finished the letter, it's quite long. Over 12,000 characters at the moment. I don't care what you guys think about my letter and how I handle the breakup, but at least I'm going through with it. My comment, you say you love your wife. How can you love someone who has cheated on you twice and you don't know about others? It's not love, it's just the want to own her and no one else, especially knowing that she has cheated. Get the hell out and screw her over and the sergeant, even if it means mother of your son. Story 2. For the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely happy with myself and who I am. My self-confidence has returned, I'm very fit and healthy, and at 33 years of age I'm excited about life, both present and future. But I feel alone, with my self-satisfaction to keep me company. I have what I consider a wonderful family and life. My wife and I have 3 children, 2 from my first marriage, between ages 8 and 20 months. I'm more than gainfully employed in a profession I love. So, what's the problem? My wife, whom I love dearly and truly thought was the love of my life, has become a physically numb robot of a lover. We are intimate possibly twice a month, assuming I take initiative and am okay with lack of interest. The backlog. I don't know that the situation started at some point, as much as it was likely present the entire time, and I just wasn't willing to see it mindfully. Obviously, with a busy family, we're both exhausted. My wife is also a professional and has a demanding job, but we're a good team, and that yes, I take off my suit after a 10-hour day, clean toilets, diaper pails, make dinner, roll on the floor with the kids and balance the finances. And lovingly, so does she. We are kind of a dream team. We rarely argue, spend lots of quality family time together and both want the same things for our family. But what do we want for ourselves? I want lust. I want her to rip my suit off, call me by my last name with a Mr. first and rock my world. She wants to read, you see the problem. I'm a very physically, emotionally secure man. I write her special notes and leave them out on her car to find in the morning. I randomly send flowers to her office, or call during a really busy day for me, just to say hello. I hold her hand as often as I can and do my very best to listen to her. I love hearing about her day and the stresses she has. I rub feet, although admittedly not as often as I should, but I do feel guilty if I don't when she asks, which I would consider a step in the proper direction. And we both support each other having free time away from each other. So, why isn't she interested in being intimate with me? I'm definitely a pleaser in bed and I think my male parts are more than adequate. I try to think about her before myself. I'm very patient and loving and just want to be close to her. I've tried every possible angle, conducted lots of research, and of course, we have discussed this at length. In fact, you would be surprised to learn my wife is actually a practicing marriage and family therapist. Ping. Her response is standard: too tired, too busy, kids, not feeling well. The challenge? I think I'm a good-looking fella. I'm successful, taking very good care of myself, dress well, and am mindful that the words which come out of my mouth are actually impacting. I am hit on around the office on a daily basis and at work events. I would never break my vow, but I am beginning to not feel as intimately confident as I once did. What's more, I'm beginning to resent my wife, and now the thought of intimacy with her is weaning. I'm also not seeing her the same way, less physically and more friendship-based. She's becoming my sister and we've only been married for 4 years. Is this what I signed up for? To be made into a tennis shoe-wearing, non-desired man with 3 kids and a wife who I will likely begin to despise intimately. I hate to talk about her and my family like this, but this is not me. I've always been a sharp, witty man who has not had a problem, or even had to question that part of my life. And I absolutely love to seduce, she just is unresponsive to things like that. I love to grab her behind and tell her how much I want her. She looks at me and laughs and says, oh yeah. I'm sure there would be 1,000 women who would embrace that. Just not my wife. Even talking about bonding, in any capacity, seems to make her turned off. I feel like such a weirdo, which feels horrible. We definitely don't spend a lot of time together. After the children are bedded, we generally watch TV or read next to each other, and we both read together before bed, which is not interaction. We used to have a date night once a week, but she went back to work and that was the end of that. When we do have a date night, we like dining and movies. I'm tired too. I work 10 hours a day and share in 50% of the housework, child raising, and nearly 80% of the financial responsibility. Lighting 50 candles 3 days per week to get laid. It's a shame, really. In the elevator, one of my work colleagues asked if I was happy to be going home. I thought and said no. She laughed and said I would be if I were going to her house. I politely laughed and proceeded to my dwelling, did the dishes while my wife made dinner, played a game with the boys. At dinner, gave them baths. My wife worked on her computer, and when it was time for lights out, I offered a back rub. Sure, she said, I really put my back into it too. When I was done, I tried to get frisky and she said she was tired, gazing at my face to see if it made me upset, gave me a kiss and rolled over to go to sleep. Another night of self-pleasure. Naturally, I thought of the lady in the elevator the entire time, which, once complete, made me feel terrible. It's quite ridiculous. I try my best to occupy my time. I ran a half marathon last weekend and I lift weights a few times a week and play golf. I also like playing basketball with the kids. I read often and play poker with the fellas once a month. You know, really whatever I can do to not be a fat, middle-aged, belching, typical. Sometimes I feel that's who she wants me to be. It would be easier for her if I didn't take care of myself or care about my image. Less liability to manage. The fact remains, if this is a 50% relationship, why do I have to do the majority of the work? Because she's the intimacy control person. She's just happy the way thing is. Of course, I am willing to work harder because I need more. Conversely, the work requires double the effort from her because she isn't the one in need. It's a raw game. So much easier to end it or cheat. By the way, I have never cheated and never would. In that moment, with it all, I think it was an opportunity to finally admit to myself that, no, I'm not happy to be going home. We have the other 2 children half the week, so it's not the standard see the kids when we can type agreement with my ex. Here's some additional backlog. My ex-wife and I get along very well and do a decent job co-parenting and have no concern with sharing custody. She needs more time and we make that happen. I need more time and we make that happen. Holidays we split based on who's going where and who needs what. I dated my current wife for a year. My current wife is on antidepressants and has been since she was 18. I don't consider myself crappy, but I'm also not depressed and don't have low self-esteem. I would divorce my wife before I cheated on her. If someone flirts with me, I'm certainly not going to ridiculously report them to HR, but I also would initiate or feed such behavior either. I leave the house at 5 when my wife returns from her workout, and I'm home by 6:15 most days and 7:15 twice a week, catch-up days at the office. Life is imperfect, as is relationships. For a number of different factors, relationships lose steam and need to be rediscovered or even invented. But one thing that can't be denied is that a marriage, by definition, is not non-physical. It is a friendship. Although my wife is certainly my friend, she is also my wife. Bonding is a large part of what makes us inherently different than, say, a really good friend of the opposite gender. Otherwise, why else marry someone? In marrying, you are agreeing to limit your physical connection to that one person, not a non-physical life that ebbs and flows based on one person's interests. She is Catholic. Went to a Catholic private school from elementary to high school and even college. She's okay with unconventional living. One would have a tough time being conventional as a therapist, but not in the bedroom. Missionary is her bread and butter. She is very quiet and I can tell she just wants me to finish so she can get back to her book. I have never been in a situation like this. Even my ex-wife, who was a monster, would want to sleep together, even if we were fighting, and my current wife and I never fight. My ex-girlfriends used to beg for me to be inside them, and in fact there was only one other person I've been with who was remotely, and that's used lightly, like my wife, and that was because she was inexperienced. I doubt my running is coming in between our relationship. Exercise helps balance my life and assists in maintaining my relationship with myself. So many couples become gelled, whether they have a strong relationship or not, and are both fat, have little confidence outside of the relationship and only exist together. I want and certainly desire being closer with my wife, and not just physically, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the nurturing on myself to do that. We have addressed this issue so many times, communicated openly about this issue or so repetitively, that I'm afraid I'm starting not to give a snap anymore. She's losing a great man and she doesn't even recognize it. It's probable time to, as one of you have relayed, to come clean about the impact of her choices with regard to this. I have been very cautious and softly respectful in relaying my concerns because frankly, that's what we do. When you love someone, you exercise patience, you hold back things that may hurt your partner, and you find the less costly way to get your point across while also listening to theirs. I'm at the end of my wits, and for what? I deserve to receive what I need too. Someone mentioned cutting her off, and I feel that is absolutely what needs to happen. She has everything she needs, emotionally, from me. Why should she change her actions? She has no incentive to absorb how I feel and respond. So, I'm cutting back on the affection, the showering, which is probably smothering, the calls and certainly the requests for bonding. What's interesting is that as this situation has begun to boil, she's inevitably changed the way I perceive her. I see her less physically and more maternally. So, I've already began to lose interest in her touch and frankly, I'm kind of turned off by her. Over the last several weeks I've begun to dislike her figure and everything physical about her. I still love her and think she is a wonderful person, but she's no longer a physical being to me, which is no doubt why I have begun to notice the advances of other women. Those advances have likely always been there, but I have not been where I am, this frustrated, long enough to notice. I've begun to avoid going to bed with her. I try to either go before or after her so I don't even have to face a potential physical interaction. I know that if she asks to be intimate, it's only out of duty. Screw that. My question is this: whatever continues to give men in the States this idea that they will sleep together when they are married? This is inexplicable, particularly when the evidence today is so damning on this question. There are more non-physical marriages in the States today than ever before, mainly due to high stress levels, both partners working, physical fatigue, obesity and health issues, and mental distraction. If a man marries at all anymore, he does so with an expectation of primarily three things: frequent bonding, companionship, and children. In experiencing this situation, I am now seeing that it doesn't take a nuclear physicist to figure out that after the wedding, the blowjobs stop. So, I don't feel sorry for myself anymore. This is my reward for marrying a woman who was a prude and not standing my ground about my needs. She lied to me about bonding and intimacy, as the majority of women do. They then threaten you with divorce if you decide to obtain a good time elsewhere. I am finding it disingenuous for an adult man in the 21st century to say, "Oh, look what's happening to me," which I have clearly done. No more. In writing to you all and discussing this, I am seeing more and more clearly. My wife is playing gatekeeper. Dude, all married men suffer from these. I'm not quite ready to divorce her already and get me some crap, but I'm certainly done begging and working towards her better side in an effort to deserve getting a good time. It's time for the table to turn. She's cut off. Fear of the future is the worst reason to avoid being happy. Not saying that if 10 represents a happy marriage and 3 is the value of bonding happiness, for me, then we're still passing the class of 70%, isn't a great way to look at this, but I'm not afraid. More importantly, I've got you money, so there would be no arguing. Just saying, that's not my concern. Some people need to learn a few times. I obviously haven't. I left my first wife because she wouldn't get medication for her bipolar disorder. Turned out to be a great decision for both of us. She is happy and the kids are happy. It all was for the best. However, you are right, I married her. I just didn't know she was like this. She tricked me and she absolutely knew she likely couldn't keep up physically, yet she was able to screw me often enough to get the ring. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has had this concern with her. I should have been smarter. The only reason I would worry about future consequences would be considering the happiness and well-being of our children, but the economic consequences don't mean a goddamn thing to me. My comment: if it was me, I would call your mother-in-law and you mother and schedule at least 10 consecutive days without the kids. I would let your wife know when the time off will be, then the month leading up to that I would spend every day doing something small that was romantic, basically saying, "You are hot, you are dear to me, you are desired, and you are mine." Then spend those 10 days dating her like she is 25 and in her prime. Take her out like she is the prom queen. You need to take control, jumpstart your romantic and physical life. If you do all that and she is still not physically responsive, then she has some kind of mental block. And she needs to work on that. But at least you tried. You went down fighting.